Hey, bless you. Good morning. Good morning. It's your buddy Will, Coach Will Farrell, Bill Farrell. Gazillion names. Talked about that before, right? But the name we want to call on is Yeshua Jesus Christ. Am I right? Hey, look, it is Tuesday morning, the day after MLK Day, 1/18/2022. It's about 6:30 in the morning. My workday starts in 29 minutes. Look, I'm so excited about this week, right? I'm excited. I've been on my knees praying since 5. I couldn't even sleep. I got up to use the bathroom and I'm like, man, you know what? Ain't no need in trying to get back to sleep. So I've been on my knees praying, and the prayer was so empowered and so strengthened, man. And I just felt so empowered after praying. You know what I mean? Excuse me. It's like, I'm praying for the Lord to go on the offensive against sin and evil and wicked corruption and all these principalities, demonic principalities and stuff that just keep running wild. I'm tired of being on defensive against these fools. I'm ready to ask the Lord to stand. I have asked the Lord to stand his rod and his staff and smite them jokers right across the forehead, right? I'm looking for something different in 2022. I've been through 6 years of hard combat, abuse, man, ostracized, man, attacked, bullied, you name it, man, you name it. They done everything to me, bro. And I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I'm ready, man, for 2022, for this fight to come to an end, a victorious end for me. No question. That's my prayer request. And I'm praying and fasting. And technically I got 3 more days of this fast, 21 days. But I don't know. I mean, I may go through the whole month of January. I mean, that's what the cost of victory. If that's what victory costs, then that's the cost I'm willing to pay. You know what I mean? I'm sick and tired of it. So if that's what it takes, the Lord say, man, keep it cranking. I'm going to keep it cranking. And it's been tough. A couple times I had to ask the Lord, help me with my fast. Yesterday was one of those days, man. It felt like my hand kept just sliding towards all the snacks and nothing else, some grapes, right? And I'm like, grapes, man, cool. But, man, I can't eat grapes till after dark. Just by on my fast. So, at any rate, that's what's up with me. If you recall, we on Daniel, reading the book of Daniel, right? Talking about Daniel fast. I shared with you a couple chapters ago that while fasting, and I just come off, man, COVID infection when visiting family in D.C. Took me straight into a fast, and I was blue right off the start, where I was depressed. I'm like, So, man, I got this strange email from some religious group, Christian group, and they were talking about a Daniel fast, and I was like, oh yeah, Daniel fast. And they gave some encouragement and some advice, and it just uplifted me. The theology was kind of, I don't know, they had some other interpretations going on. I don't want to say interpretations are wrong, but some parts were definitely dead on. I could recognize those parts. It picked me up. It lifted me up. And I remember, I said, yeah, a lot of churches do a Daniel fast at the beginning of the new year. What made me revisit the book of Daniel was I was like, well, if I recall, he didn't have a fast that he named Daniel fast. Or he just said something to do, he just eat vegetables or something like that. So inspired me to reread the book of Daniel, and I looked at all my scriptures that I read online, and I was realized, I said, Daniel's not here? What's wrong with you, man? Why you not have Daniel? So here Daniel is. As far as his eating habits go, that was covered in chapter 1, a couple verses, about 2 verses, and that was it. So if you're fasting, also Daniel fasting, make sure you read the book of Daniel or listen to this video, and make sure we clearly understand what Daniel was going through and what the Lord wants us to know through the book of Daniel. All right, so with no further ado, we're on chapter 5. The other chapters are online already. Northflow Slot Car is the Norwood Florence. I told you I got a gazillion names, right? That's because I really don't want all my personal business spread across the internet. So, all right, let's talk about the handwriting on the wall, chapter 5, verse 1. And so far, Nebuchadnezzar came back. He went into the wilderness like a beast for what, 7 years? And now he's back. Chapter 5, verse 1. King Nebuchadnezzar made a great feast for 1,000 of his lords and drank wine in front of the 1,000. Belshazzar, when he tasted the wine, commanded that the vessels of gold and of silver that Nebuchadnezzar, his father, had taken out of the temple in Jerusalem be brought, that the king and his lords, his wives, and concubines might drink from them. Belshazzar. That's Daniel, ain't it? Daniel drank the wine. Because remember, Nebuchadnezzar renamed Daniel Belshazzar after Neb's god. So let's read a comment from, I'm reading, this is the study guide, MacArthur Study Bible. So it says, Belshazzar. These events occurred in 539 BC, over 2 decades after Nebuchadnezzar's death. All right, it says King Belshazzar. Right. 2 decades after Nebuchadnezzar's death. This king, whose name is similar to Daniel's, right, means Bel, that means protect the king, is about to be conquered by the Medo-Persian army. Just go straight and didn't tell when Neb died necessarily. So, all right. So, no, that wasn't Daniel. Let me start over again. King Belshazzar made a great feast. Daniel wasn't king. Made a great feast for 1,000 of his lords and drank wine in front of the 1,000. Belshazzar, when he had tasted the wine, commanded that the vessels of gold and of silver that Nebuchadnezzar, his father, had taken out of the temple in Jerusalem be brought, that the king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines might drink from them. Then they brought in the golden vessels that had been taken out of the temple, the house of God in Jerusalem, and the king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines drank from them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. Immediately, the fingers of a hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace, opposite the lampstand. Nothing's by coincidence. And the king saw the hand as it wrote. Chapter 5, verse 6. Then the king's color changed, and his thoughts alarmed him. His limbs gave way, and his knees knocked together. The king called loudly to bring in the enchanters, the Chaldeans, and the astrologers. The king declared to the wise men of Babylon, whoever reads this writing and shows me its interpretation shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold around his neck and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. Who's the first? We know he's the first ruler. Who's the second ruler? Then all the king's wise men came in. But they could not read the writing, or make known to the king the interpretation. Then King Belshazzar was greatly alarmed, and his color changed, and his lords were perplexed. The queen, because of the words of the king and his lords, came into the banquet hall, and the queen declared, O king, live forever. Let not your thoughts alarm you, or your color change. There is a man in your kingdom, in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. In the days of your father, light and understanding and wisdom like the wisdom of the gods were found in him. And King Nebuchadnezzar, your father the king, made him chief of the magicians, enchanters, Chaldeans, and astrologers, because in excellent spirit, knowledge, and understanding to interpret dreams, explain riddles, and solve problems were found in this Daniel, whom the king named Belshazzar. Right. Now, let Daniel be called, and he will show the interpretation. All right. All right, Daniel, you back up. Let's talk about the handwriting. Verse 13, then Daniel was brought in before the king. The king answered and said to Daniel, you are that Daniel, one of the exiles of Judah, whom the king my father brought from Judah. I have heard of you, that the spirit of the gods is in you, and that the light and understanding and excellent wisdom are found in you. Now, the wise men, the enchanters, have been brought in before me to read the writing and make known to me its interpretation. But they cannot show the interpretation of the matter. But I have heard that you can give interpretations and solve problems. Now, if you can read the writing and make known to me its interpretation, you shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold around your neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. All right. So we're going to put him in some purple like Prince. Put a gold chain around his neck like a hip-hop artist, right? And but more importantly, going to give him, actually that purple man is a huge indication. I'm going to give him number 3 slot in the kingdom. Verse 17, then Daniel answered and said before the king, let your gifts be for yourself, and give your rewards to another. Nevertheless, I will read the writing to the king and make known to him the interpretation. Hey, Daniel don't play. He said, look, you can keep all that stuff. That purple don't mean, the chains don't mean nothing. Look, but I want to do this for you. O king, the Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar, your father, kingship and greatness and glory and majesty. And because of the greatness that he gave him, all peoples, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him. Whom he would, he killed, and whom he would, he kept alive. Whom he would, he raised up, and whom he would, he humbled. But when his heart was lifted up and his spirit was hardened, so that he dealt proudly, he was brought down from his kingly throne, and his glory was taken from him. He was driven from among the children of mankind, and his mind was made like that of a beast, and his dwelling was with the wild donkeys, and he was fed grass like an ox, and his body was wet with dew of heaven, until he knew that the Most High God rules the kingdom of mankind and sets over it whom he will. Sounds like my prayer request. I'm praying for some righteousness and justice, lawfulness, compassion within Department of Interior, EEOC, as well as Office of Special Counsel. Look, I'm looking for a righteous government. So, and I was struggling with that prayer just this morning. How do you pray for that? It doesn't seem like God necessarily interferes with government business, right? But we do notice that he does, or have times in Scripture come upon the leaders of these governments, and that changes the government. So I'm not praying for nothing for Joe Biden and nothing like that. I'm not trying to take on all the federal agencies. I'm just praying for the ones that I have intimate and close contact and relationship with. I'm praying that there are other prayer warriors standing the gap for those other agencies. Verse 22, and you, his son, Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, though you knew all this, but you have lifted up yourself against the Lord of heaven, and the vessels of his house have been brought in before you, and you and your lords, your wives, and your concubines have drunk wine from them, and you have praised the gods of silver and gold, of bronze and iron and wood and stone, which do not see or hear or know, but the God in whose hands is your breath, and whose are all your ways, you have not honored. Verse 24, then from his presence the hand was sent, and this writing was inscribed. And this is the writing that was inscribed: Mene, Mene, Tekel and Parsin. This is an interpretation of the matter. Mene, God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, You have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. Perez, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. 29. Then Belshazzar gave the command, and Daniel was clothed with purple. I thought he'd get mad. And a chain of gold was put around his neck, and a proclamation was made about him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. That very night, Belshazzar, the Chaldean king, was killed, and Darius the Mede received the kingdom, being about 62 years old. All right, chapter 6 looks short. Let's run on chapter 6. Here's the infamous one about the lion's den. Chapter 6, it pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps to be. Let me try it again. Chapter 6, verse 1. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps to be throughout the whole kingdom, and over them 3 high officials, of whom Daniel was one, to whom these satraps would give account, so that the king might suffer no loss. Then this Daniel became distinguished above all the other high officials and satraps because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. Wow. Then the high officials and the satraps sought to find a ground for complaint against Daniel. There it is. They're conspiring with regard to the kingdom, but they could find no ground for complaint or any fault, because he was faithful, and no error or fault was found in him. Then these men said, we shall not find a ground for complaint against this Daniel unless we find it in connection with the law of his God. They conspiring. You hear that? You hear that wickedness, that evil, that sin, that conspiracy. You hear it. I'm praying against it right now. I'm binding it in the heavens and binding it here on earth. I'm binding it right in federal agency that I'm at. I'm binding it. Rebuking it in the name of Yeshua Jesus. Father God, Yahweh, Jehovah, with authority. Chapter 6, verse 6. Then these high officials and satraps came by agreement to the king and said to him, O King Darius, live forever. All the high officials of the kingdom, the prefects and the satraps, the counselors and the governors are agreed that the king shall establish an ordinance and enforce an injunction that whoever makes petition to any god or man for 30 days except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish the injunction and sign the document so that it cannot be changed according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be revoked. Therefore, King Darius signed the document and injunction. When Daniel knew that the document had been signed, he went to his house where he had windows in his upper chamber open toward Jerusalem. He got down on his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he had done previously. It's interesting. It's something I want to pay attention to. He prayed 3 times a day. Then we do a Daniel fast for 21 days. Why do we not? Muslims pray 5 times a day, right? Why do we not pray 3 times a day? It's interesting. Hey, I'm not trying to make them the new religious rules. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't get that twisted. Got enough as it is, right? But I'm just looking at how some stuff we take and work with and some stuff we don't. Verse 11. Then these men came by agreement and found Daniel making petition and plea before his God. Then they came near and said before the king concerning an injunction, O king, did you not sign an injunction that anyone who makes petition to any god or man within 30 days except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? The king answered and said, the thing stands fast according to the law of Medes and Persians, which cannot be revoked. Then they answered and said before the king, Daniel, who is one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to you, O king, or the injunction you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day. Then the king, when he heard these words, was much distressed and set his mind to deliver Daniel. And he labored till the sun went down to rescue him. Then these men came by agreement to the king and said to him, Know, O king, that it is a law of Medes and Persians that no injunction or ordinance that the king establishes can be changed. So you see the conspiracy, you see the trap, the setup. They knew they couldn't get him in the flesh. They went for his God, his relationship with his God. Same God I pray to. And just influenced King Darius, man. Just swung him on around with no problem. Chapter 16, but what people do for evil, God can use for good. Then the king commanded, and Daniel was brought and cast into the den of lions. The king declared to Daniel, May your God, whom you serve, continue to deliver you. And the stone was brought and laid on the mouth of the den. And the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his lords, that nothing might be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king went to his palace and spent the night fasting. He spent the night fasting. Look at that. No diversions were brought to him, and sleep fed from him. Then at daybreak the king arose and went in haste to the den of lions. As he came near to the den where Daniel was, he cried out in a tone of anguish. The king declared to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions? Then Daniel said to the king, O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they have not harmed me, because I was found blameless before him, and also before you, O king. I have done no harm. Then the king was exceedingly glad and commanded that Daniel be taken up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no kind of harm was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. Let's talk about that again. Because he had trusted in his God. And the king commanded, and those men who had maliciously accused Daniel were brought and cast into the den of lions. Woo! They, their children, and their wives. And before they reached the bottom of the den, the lions overpowered them and broke all their bones in pieces. Treachery, boy. Verse 25. Then King Darius wrote to all the people, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, Peace be multiplied to you. I make a decree that in all my royal dominion, people are to tremble in fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, enduring forever. His kingdom shall never be destroyed, and his dominion shall be to the end. He delivers and rescues. He works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. He who has saved Daniel from the power of the lions. So this Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. That's it. It's chapter 5 and 6. Some good things. We always read stuff about the lion, but we missed a few key points there. All right, look, guess I'm ready to get this week started. Got 6 minutes, time to get to work. Praying for power and authority, Christ to come right into my work environment, to bind and rebuke this corruption, this wicked, this evilness, this cheating, this lying, this lawlessness here in this federal environment. And man, and really we keep talking about, people talk about red and blue, donkeys and elephants. No, man, what we really need to do is all be on our knees praying for a righteous and just government. Not praying for the things we understand as men and humans. I want Democrats. I want Republicans to win. No. We should be praying that God would intercede, intervene, come in, run, rule, regulate our federal government. Because though we think we know what's right, look, the hearts of men, it's just our sin nature. So join me in praying for our government. Not praying for abortion, not praying against abortion. Me personally, hey man, I feel that abortion is a horrible birth control tool. But I don't hold no salt on nobody, throw no stones. I have used abortion system on multiple occasions and lost some kids, for which occasionally I go back and I pray and I regret, and I ask God for forgiveness. But I'm not praying for it. I'm not praying against it. I'm praying that God will intercede. God will intervene. God will run. His will be held supreme over my federal agency. You help me pray for the rest of our government. The same prayer. Not what's in your heart, but God's will. Love you. Bless you.